Hi and welcome back to another video of jPlay, and as you can see today I'm doing a video about Gutenberg. I was debating with myself for quite some time, should I do a multiplayer playthrough, how many players, should I do a solo playthrough, and ultimately I asked some of my patrons actually, and there is an interest for both. And still I think I wanted to go with a multiplayer walkthrough first. Not entirely sure if I would be doing a full playthrough because there's a lot of hidden information in respect to the planning what's going on. So I'm not really sure if that's fun to watch. Having me do this for all three players, I'm trying to simulate the game for here. But in the end, I will let you decide if I should continue. So for this video, I think I will go for the first 1 or 2 rounds, and then you can make up. Oh, you can make a call if I should keep going or if I should move on to the solo experience that is. I was happy enough to get myself a copy at this year's Essen Spiel. The components are awesome, really amazing. Pretty sure I will be able to show you some of you to this. But again, without further ado, let's get basically into the game, which is all about book printing, obviously. So in the course or over the course of 6 rounds, we are trying to get as many victory points as possible by fulfilling these orders up here. These orders consist of a printing card, of a refinement card, that is. There are also some end of game scoring opportunities which are printed down here on the main game board. So depending on the level of the specialty you're reaching for each of those disciplines here, you can get up to 6 points each. You can score 8 points for each of those patronage cards here in case you get at least one of those, for example, and then ultimately you will score some points for the leftover guilders that you were able to hold on during the course of the game. As mentioned, I'm doing a 3-player game, and all players start the game with 2 orders. And again, the order always comes in a pair of a printing card and a refinement card. You can never tear them apart later on. You can discard those if you find a better one, for example. But once you select those, you have to keep them together until you fulfill one of those. We will start with 3 letters each. You get to choose which letters you start with. Obviously, you're using letters that you need in order to fulfill your initial orders. There are not a ton of different letters, but yeah, these are very nice wooden and thick tokens here. Basically, they're really looking nice. They are printed in verse, which means yes, if you put them here onto your book, they are basically doing things correctly. I like that a lot. We start the game with 10 guilders each. We will start on the level 0 of our specialties. Each of the players was able to draw 2 special abilities or 2 characters. In this case, we have Johannes Gutenberg. His special ability allows him to deal with the initiative planning. Once we have revealed, they are able to move 1 cube to another action, for example. The blue player is Schweibhold Fiol, which special ability allows them to basically get the reward of those refinement cards, which you typically only get if you meet the requirements or both of the requirements of the card. But his special ability allows him, even if he only is able to fulfill one of those requirements, when they are fulfilling their orders, they would still gain the reward that's printed here. And this could be an order, this could be extra victory points, you name it. Hopefully I will not forget it. And last but not least, we have Charlotte Gilead, who doesn't have an ongoing ability, but she simply starts the game with 2 of those gears. You put them into any, let's say, configuration as you see fit. But apart from that, she doesn't really have any more ongoing ability, so we can flip her token to the other side, looking at the nice artwork here. And yeah, these were the 2 orders that she was able to draft. And that's basically done as part of a snake draft. The first player goes first, second player, third player, then third player again, and so on. You get the idea until you have 2 of those pairs available. There are always some leftover printing cards and refinement cards, and then you shuffle these back. But that's basically the starting configuration. Blue player, Fiol, will be first in this case, and this is where those player screens comes into the picture. We are only using this for the planning, and that's not necessarily the correct one for the characters, but there is not a player screen for each of those special ability tiles available. And the way how this works is the starting player starts with 7 of those planning cubes. Second player has 2, third player has 9, and so on. And there is definitely some balancing in respect to when you're passing the starting player off, you're moving then cubes to the new last player. Very clever mechanic, by the way. Hopefully I can show this to you at the end of this round. But again, we are using this initiative boards now, and you are planning how powerful or how important those actions are for you. So let's say you really desperately want some more orders and you want a very specific order up there. You would like to plan more of those cubes in there. And as long as you're planning at least one cube in each of those actions, you get to take those actions. So if you leave something empty, you're not taking that action. But this could be something which you are totally willing to do because you don't need ink, for example, or you don't need new gears out there, for example. But again, as long as you have at least one cube, you will definitely get to take that action if you want to. The thing is, the order does matter, and the more cubes you spend, the more likely it is that you will get first dibs. So let's say blue has 3 here, red has 2, white has 1. In this case, blue would get first dibs on those orders here. In case of a tie, this is where the starting player token matters. They are breaking the tie, and from there we are moving clockwise. I'm playing counterclockwise here because of recording reasons, but don't let that confuse you. But that's basically the gist of this planning phase. We all do this behind our player screens. For all of these actions, after we have planned it all, we are removing those player screens, and then we see action by action who gets to go first and gets first dips. And that's what it's all about, getting first dips for the various actions, and then we are resolving them also from top down to bottom. So it's very nicely done in respect to those planning initiative boards here, because you can easily follow up from top down to bottom. Again, orders here, inks here. You can increase your specialties, you can improve your printing house, or go for a patronage here, or getting a patronage card, which is something that, yeah, I will explain when we get there. I will do the playing now off camera because it's really not fun to watch, and I have to use some level of randomization. One thing that I did notice, the very first maybe 1 or 2 rounds, the initiative isn't maybe incredibly important, at least not for all of those actions, but it's really getting a thing the closer you come to the end. So as of round 3, 4, 5, it's massively important to plan that correctly, making sure you get the proper ink, you get the proper wheel, for example, gear here, or maybe making sure you're getting one of those patronage cards here. But again, I will do the planning now off camera, and then we will go through the actions and I will explain you everything as I go. Okay, that's the planning for the blue player. Again, they didn't really have a lot of cubes to spend, but still breaking the ties. They wanted to make sure maybe getting at least some early choices on the ink and also maybe on the patronage down here. The red player was completely ignoring the order track. That's because they are starting with this gear. And this gear you can pretty much activate any time during your turn or during the round, and this ability here allows them to grab an additional orders, which is why they could completely ignore that for this round. Yeah, maybe it's not bad going for 2 different orders, but looking at the offerings out there, red players said, nah, it's not really that crazy important right now, going for some of the offerings that are available on there. But anyway, that's the initiative board for the red player. And then it's white, and because of Johannes Gutenberg's special ability, they can move now 1 cube after everyone has revealed the initiative board from one action to the other. He sees that he doesn't necessarily need first dips on those orders, so he will still get an okay choice. So he will consider moving this down and maybe place this cube down here, making sure they get. On the other hand, they could also do the same. No, he will. Yeah, then he would get first dips. Actually, no. Let's go for this. Let's go for this. So they want the cheap ink later on. And that's basically the planning phase. Now we are executing our plans. And again, we start from top to bottom. Again, it's the blue player who goes first now. Again, blue and white have the same amount of cubes. Blue is the starting player, so he breaks ties in his favors. And you always want to go first. So there is no reason going second or third in this case. And I guess looking at those things, he's totally going for this printing card, and then he has to choose a refinement card that has to go with it. And why not go for this? Again, red didn't choose to go there, which is totally fine. So in this case, it's a white player. They will go for this printing card, and yeah, both of those kind of suck actually. So let's go for this refinement card. Those cards are getting discarded. So we will always have a fresh offering at the start of the next round. And that's already the first action done. So very quickly executed actually. The planning, yeah, may take some time. Again, the longer you go in the game, the longer the planning phase takes. But then executing those actions, it's usually very obvious about what you are doing with your given action. Next, we are going for the inks. Again, blue and red are tied on 2. We just saw that white has basically rearranged this. So white has first dibs on the inks, and then it's blue and then red. Of course, again, blue is breaking the tie in his favor. And the way how this works is you are choosing one of those 3 sections. And again, there are spaces for a 4-player game. The same is true up here, for example, which you're simply not using in a 4-player game. And there's also another side on the basically on the other side of this game where there's also a 2-player version, which I typically like a lot actually. So you don't have to cover it up. Yes, for a 3-player, you're simply not bringing those out, but that's pretty obvious. And when you have chosen for one of those sections, you can then basically buy up to 3 of those inks that are here. The first one is always free, the second one costs you 1, and the third one costs you 2. You have to buy from left to right. So let's say whatever white ones, both of those red things here, you also have to buy the brownish one here, the light brownish one. But in this case, I think that's not bad actually for the white player. Yeah, let's go for that. So they're taking all 3 of those inks, placing them next to their player board. Therefore, they have to spend $3 in total, getting 1 back. And then it's the blue player, who I think will definitely go for, that's interesting. Maybe let's just go for these 2 for now. So he's only spending 1 guilder. And we are leaving this green one here out. And now it would be red. And in theory, if red desperately wants this green one, they could also go in there. But then they would limit themselves to only buying 1 ink. And it still costs you 2 guilders. But I think in this case, they are fine. So we are going with this. So they also have to spend 3 guilders. They don't need it all, but they, I think, want the brown and the blue for sure. No, the red and the blue for sure. No, I think that's fine. And that's already the end of this second action. This goes back to the nice looking cloth back. And then we are looking at our specialties here. And by the way, this dice here helped me a little bit to decide on some of the plannings here. Because again, during the very first 1 or 2 rounds, choices are not that obvious every time. So I used some randomization for some of the players. So we are now basically improving our skills. Let's put it like this. And you do that again by taking one of those cards, depending on the player order, and you're moving up those tracks accordingly. In this case, it's the red player who has planned 3 of those. So red gets first dip on those. So red definitely wants to have maybe this. Or they could also make a call going for this, because this would give them basically another ink right off the bat, which I will explain to you. On the other hand, I think they would not be able to fulfill it anyway. No, let's go for this card here. And the way how this works is you have to make a choice. Now, you can either advance basically the track according to this card. In this case, it would be twice on this track up here. That's the one choice you can do. And if you would go for this card, then it's what this and this here, for example. I think that makes sense. On the other hand, you can always choose to say, I don't care what's printed here on the card. I'm also allowed to move up any other track. So let's say I really desperately need this symbol here, which is not out there. Then they could simply ditch this card to progress 1 step here. But then you're losing 1 step. Could be still important enough later on, but right now I think that doesn't make sense. So in this case, they will simply move up 1, 2 spaces here on this, let's say, specialty. The card gets discarded because we have now reached a level 2. For one of those specialties, we are also allowed to progress this piece up. This is where this little Roman 2 comes into the picture. The very first time one of your specialties makes it to level 2, you are unlocking this power. Then the next time this would happen if one of those reaches level 4, 5, and 6 respectively. And in this case, you get the reward immediately, and this drop also always means you get to choose 1 drop from the cloth bag. And I think in this case, maybe later on they might need some green drops. So I think, let me pull one out here of the bag accordingly and place it next to their player board. And that's already the action for the red player. Up next is blue, because again, they are breaking the ties and they both have one cube plan, both blue and white, that is. And honestly, they don't really care about either of those. So I think they will go simply for this, meaning we will move up those tracks here accordingly. Again, we didn't reach level 2, so we are not unlocking this. A special bonus here. Let's discard this card. Last but not least, it's white, who doesn't really have a choice in this case. So that's one letter and that's one here accordingly. Again, we are discarding those. They may get shuffled back later on, but that's already the third action of the very first round. You see, the game is progressing incredibly fast, and it feels much slower now because I'm explaining you all the mechanics as I go. But when you explain the game up front and then start playing it, it's really moving extremely fast. Up next, we are going to improve our printing houses. Let's look at the planning board, and red player is first, again, I think, because they planned 2 cubes there, both blue and white, only one. Again, it's red, blue, then white because of player order. So what does red want to do this round? Do they want to go for an additional letter here, for example? This could be pretty powerful because this would mean additional points. Should we do that short-sighted or not? We will be able to trigger this at least twice during the round. We could also buy a letter cheap. So I think, yeah, let's go with this gear for the red player, who already started the game with basically 2 gears here. And the way how this works is you can activate those gears in theory anytime during a turn. I think I already mentioned that. This is where you have these extra cubes here. So whenever you say, I want to trigger this action now, you're placing it here and then you are fulfilling. And we have to do that right now, actually, before I forgot. Maybe I should have done that right after we have drafted the orders, but I will do that now in a second. You're only allowed to trigger the action that is facing these arcs here around here, these lighted arcs. So this section here means this is corresponding to this arc, which means we can do this, we can do this. And if we're now placing our third wheel, we would do that accordingly. There is only one thing that you have to consider when you place in that wheel, that you have to make sure you will basically meet the sizing of these arcs. So there are ways that you can whatever intersect or whatever. You have to make it fit. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Later on, those things will move, and this can drive you crazy. At least it did for me. But for now, I think that's what the red player is going for. Before we are now moving on to the selection of the other players, and you can do that anytime during a turn, red is now saying, no, I want to trigger this action now. And what this means is you are getting a reward, and this reward is an extra order. And the way how this works is you are drawing 2 of those printing cards and 2 of those refinement cards, and basically craft a new order together. If you don't like the choices, you can even spend money to draw more cards, but I think right now that's pretty okay. So red will go for this order, and that was the reason why they didn't plan any cubes down there for the order section, because they knew they would be able to trigger this special ability. And as for, oh, that's a nice cheap one here, they will go for this refinement card down here. The rest again is getting discarded, and then we are moving over to the blue player, who makes their pick in respect to those gears. And looking at those gears, this could also give them a potential extra to victory point. I think that's also not bad. So let's use this gear. Keep in mind they didn't start the game with any gear, so you have to start from top down to bottom. So I cannot place my first gear in here. Later on, you are also allowed to exchange those gears. Instead of taking new gear, you're also allowed to take it out and put it back in any orientation you see fit. So there are a lot of choices that you can take, and sometimes you have to do that because it's tough to plan that along for 3 moving gears, and I'm totally bad at playing Solkin actually. So I think let's place this thing like this, because what this actually means when we are triggering this ability basically at the very end of the round, when we are fulfilling our orders, this means if I am fulfilling an order that requires us to have an A letter assigned to it, I will cash in or score an additional 2 victory points. And that's ultimately the name of the game. The white player, again, doesn't have that many choices. Basically, this gear is left, but that's what I said. You always get to get the action. You can always choose to not take it. Let's say there's nothing I want to do with the remaining wheel here, or let's say the white player already has 3 perfect wheels and they don't want to mess around with it. They simply could say, yeah, I don't care about this. But anyway, let's grab it for now and let's place it in here according. I think we will do it like this, and we are already or immediately activating this, and this means that the lowest specialty right now would progress 1 step up. In case of a tie, you get to choose. Let me quickly check. I think let's move this one up because there are some requirements in respect to this. I think that's the book binding or so specialty, and then we have basically already triggered this wheel. You have 4 of those cubes. 3 you might need for your gears later on, and 1 is basically for the next action we are going to trigger, because that's already the end of the 4th action this round. So let's move down here to the final action of this round, which is the Patronage Action. During the very first 1 or 2 turns, the only thing that you can do down here is to place your remaining cube on one of those actions here. Let's say you want another order. You maybe want to upgrade 1 of your specialty, you want 3 guilders or 2 inks from the bag. That's the only thing that you can do, and here it's also first come, first serve. So let's say white is going here. White will be first, they planned 3 cubes there, and red will be last. So if white goes here, no one else can go there this round. The later we come, let's say as of round 3, those patronage cards will also unlock, and they will only unlock the cards that are beneath it. This is basically a space for 4-player game again. In case you are able to meet the requirements of the patron here, having 2 A's, having level 4 on this specialty, then if you have first tips, you could say, I want to claim this patronage card instead of going here to one of those actions, and this will basically give you 8 points at the end of the game. And 8 points is certainly not nothing. But again, for this very first, or basically first 1 or 2 rounds, we have to make a choice in one of those. And guilders and this specialty isn't typically bad. So I think in this case they will go for the specialty, and I think I already messed this up. Allow me this 1 mulligan here. They already got 1 thing down here. I think it was like this and this, but he sees he could have done this actually. So let's do this instead for the freebie we got here. And now for the extra level, we will go for this one here too, because that's now a level 2, which will unlock this. So we are getting an ink, and we are also meeting the requirement of this refinement card, having this chisel kind of thing on level 2, which would give us an additional 2 victory points. That's huge. And I think as for our thing, I don't know, let's go for a blue one or green one. Oh, I don't know. Let's go for a blue one. Doesn't really matter too much. So that's basically the reward coming from this, because again, we have made one of our specialties up to level 2. Okay, then up next is the blue player, and it's either guilders or extra ink. And extra ink is never a bad thing actually. Let's do that. Let's go for 2 inks from the back, and looking at their orders, they already have covered this one here with the blue. Maybe looking at this could be beneficial, so maybe let's go for an extra red. And you can look at the insides of the back basically at any time, making sure there is still, I don't know, a red droplet in there, because those things are limited, but I have never seen that running out actually. Okay, that was already the action for the blue player. Up next and last for this round is red. They could make a case for both now. Getting an extra order is never a bad thing. Preparing you for this, and this means, okay, you may not have to worry about the very first action of the game, for example, at least for another round or so. So maybe, but also getting the 3 guilders isn't bad, because you need guilders, or 3 guilders is a victory point, but you need guilders to buy more of those letters later on. You can buy those letters basically any time during your round, even before you're going to the printing or fulfilling your orders, but they get increasingly more expensive. So when you start the game with 3 letters, the next letter costs you 4. If you have then 4, the next letter would be 5, and so on. So this can become prohibitively expensive, but not sure, are we going to do that anytime soon? We already spent some dollars. Getting the extra order helps you to prepare for additional inks or for your specialties. I think let's do that. I talked myself into that. Might be completely wrong. But again, we are drawing 2 of those printing cards. Oh, that's a nice easy one actually. And 2 of those refinement cards. Let's keep it easy. We want to do this for now. So they are now already at 4 orders, and we need a refinement card that goes together. And as I already mentioned, you can never tear those apart. Once they're paired, they have to stay together. Let's go for this now, for this refinement card. And again, the other 2s are getting discarded whenever the deck runs out. We are reshuffling everything that's left. And that's basically the end of the, let's say, action phase, the execute plans. Last thing to do for this round is to fulfill our orders. Now, this is something that you usually do simultaneously, because you don't really have to wait for others. In this case, I will do that player by player. In order to fulfill an order, you have to meet the requirements of the printing card. That's the minimum yet you have to do. You cannot bring out books without letters. So we are not doing children's book with just with color and nice images. No, we need letters. And in order to meet the requirement of this, we need an A, we need an I, and we need an O. You're never using up those letters, but you can also not use the same letters on, let's say, 2 different orders at the same point in time. In theory, you could print all of those books here, but then you really would need a hell of a lot of letters. So this one here, AIO, then you would need another AIIO, another IIUU. So at the start of the game, very first 1 or 2 rounds, it's not uncommon that you simply do 1 order. And that's not a bad thing to do these orders. And I guess in this case, that was the planning all along. So they will assign those 3 letters. Again, they will get that back at the end of the round. They could now buy additional letters. So let's say they had a ton of money. They could go, I'm buying these letters now. But that's, again, that will cost them whatever, $20 or so, 20 guilders now. So that's not very realistic. In this case, they're also assigning the blue droplet in here, which means they're meeting 1 requirement of the refinement cards here. Here we would check, do they have the chisel value on level 3? No, they don't. So they're not completing or fulfilling this refinement. But at least they brought them color into the book, which is already nice. So what they will get now for this order is 3 guilders. That's basically, you always get money for those things, for those letter symbols. You get the points typically from your refinements. You're getting 2 points because it's blue. We are not getting the 2 points here because we are not on level 3 here. This blue goes back into the cloth bag right away. But because he's Fiol, his special ability allows him to still get the extra reward on this refinement card. Usually only get the reward if you're meeting both requirements here. In this case, he doesn't care about this, so that's 3 coins. We already gave it to him, 2 points here, 2 points here. That's 4 points for the blue player, which is not an incredible bad start, but not so fast because they haven't used this gear up there and it's facing the right direction. They are now activating it right away. And this one says if you are fulfilling an order that needed an A, which this one did, so they spent the A on this order, you will also score an extra 2 victory points for that. Oh, that's very nice for blue, bringing them up to 6 points in total. Then we are removing the order. Again, the letters go back to the player's reserve and then they will basically call it around. But again, you are doing this simultaneously and don't need to wait that player by player. Yeah, maybe the first time you're playing this in the very first round, you do that player by player just to make sure everyone got it right. But apart from that, you really do that all simultaneously. Let's do the red player next. They do have, in fact, a somewhat realistic chance doing both of those orders, but it would still cost them a lot of money. I don't think they have the money, and I think they do not really care about that. At the very start of the game, that's not incredibly important. So they will assign the A, the O, and the U. So that's again the minimum that you have to achieve. They could stop here and simply go for the 3 money, which is 1 victory point in the end. But of course they have the blue droplet, they have the red droplet. Here they are not on level 1, they are not on level 5, so we are basically ignoring the second part here. So they will not score the extra 4 points, but they will get 4 points here from this and 3 coins from that reward. And unfortunately, because again printing is simultaneous, we cannot now use the 3 guilders they made up here in order to buy, let's say, another letter to fulfill the next order. Again, everything everything is done simultaneously at this point in time. They will also now check their gears, and they still have 2 more gears. So they basically had a refinement card that required a blue. That's an additional 2 point. And they also have an order which needed an O up here, which is another 2 points. So in total, they are scoring 4 points plus 4 points, 8 points, which is pretty massive for the very first round of the game. Nice job, Red. And I guess that's that. I will discard all those inks, all those cards. Let's do the white player last. And I think their round will be a little bit more modest actually. So they will also score the 3 coins, because that's basically 1 coin per letter which you are printing, and that's your only income that you get, unless you're going to the Patronage Action down there. They will assign the 1 thing in here, so that's not bad. And they have reached level 2 on this, so they will basically get 4 points in total, plus the 1 extra coin because they made this reward. And that's never a bad thing, having some money. So overall, again, they made 4 points out of this. And I mean, they as well could have opted now to go for extra letters here, which I think would have been affordable for them. I think they needed, no, I think they didn't have 9 coins at that point in time. No, they were short at least 2. So getting those 2 extra letters wouldn't have been possible for them. So I think let's forget about that. Let's simply give them 4 points, which again isn't as great as the other players, but it's totally fair for the very first round of the game. Now we are doing basically some cleanup, and we are bringing out new cards and tokens. Again, have to remember that this spot is blocked. Let's do that real quick. You also repopulate all the inks. That's something that I will do mainly off camera. We are bringing out new specialty cards. Basically, let's call it training cards or whatever we want to refer to those. Of course, we are also bringing out 3 new wheels, and again, the iconography can be, it's really not confusing, but you have to go through the game once or twice in order to understand. So this here, for example, allows you to exchange 1 letter with another letter. Pretty amazing stuff. That's pretty much the same gear that the white player has chosen. We are removing all the cubes from those gears, and I think, yeah, I will do that now off camera. And then I guess we are good to go to move into the second round, that is. Let's bring those cubes back, which also means the starting player now moves to the red player, which means blue is now last. And this also means that every player gives the blue player now 1 initiative cubes, which now brings them to 9 cubes in total. And again, last player has 9 cubes, and again, a mechanic very, very cleverly done, and also very nicely outlined here on the player screens. You really see all the actions, all the bonuses, what are the actions, what do I need to pay for extra letters. So a very, very useful and great player screen actually. The first thing that you do at the start of any given round is to move the topmost wheel 1 space clockwise over. Of course, all the other connected wheels are moving accordingly, which now means for the red player, yeah, he has an empty space down here, which doesn't give him anything. So in theory, they could then later on exchange a wheel, for example, or they could, instead of taking another wheel, take it out and move it into any orientation they see fit. And because they started the game with 2 wheels, that might be a very feasible thing for them to do. We do the same for all the other players. They only have 1 gear available to them. This special ability allows them basically anytime during their turn getting an extra A for a discount of 3. That can be pretty huge. And here we have the white player who could now exchange 1 letter with another letter. Let's say they don't want to hold on to the A, they may need another I, and that's basically what they could do with this action. Can be also extremely powerful. Okay, then I will now do the planning again off camera, and yeah, we'll show you the results in a second for you. Might take me a little bit longer. Okay, and that's what I ended up with in the end. So we have the blue player here. They are pretty strong on the patronage here, and they're not so strong on the others, but again, they're last. That's why they have a hell of a lot of cubes. Here's the red player, who is the starting player, will definitely break the ties in respect to the ink, and ink might be a special scenario, but simply resolve those things in order. So blue has 1, white has 1, red has 2. So it's red, white and blue, because again, blue is now last, so tie is broken in favor of the white player. And by the way, these boxes up here, they do come with the game. They're not very sturdy, but they still help you to stow away your components into the game. So the game doesn't come with any plastic materials whatsoever, so there is enough boxes available for most of the components. The only big but here are those gear wheels. There are quite a lot. That's the only bag I artificially have put in. Yes, in theory you could have used the cloth bag or whatnot, but I'm okay. I have those bags anyway. But apart from that, it's really nice that they're coming with these boxes. I think there are at least 6 to 8 of those boxes, so you really can stow away or put away all your components very, very nicely without using too much of, or having too much of a sorting hassle. Nicely done. Okay, red was first, right? Yeah, they wanted to make sure to get this I and the U. That much is clear. And as for the refinement, let's go for this here. Yeah, why not? Up next is white, and they also want a rather simple one, even though it doesn't really help them too much, but you have to go for duplicates letters sooner or later anyway. So let's go for this easy one here. And do we have another simple one? I mean, here we are already on our, let's go for this one here, because there is a chance we might be able to achieve that. And last but not least, it's the blue player who is last, and yeah, they will simply go for what's left, but this round we have used all of those order cards here. Then it's the inks, and I think here it's also red, white and blue. Actually, they all planned 2 cubes there. So red is first because they are the starting player. What did they need? I think they needed the red. Yeah, I think they wanted this one here. Do they need both? Do we need blue? No, I think they will only go for those 2, only spending 1 guilder for that. Up next it's white. What did they need? I think they had this, they had this, they have a red. I think they need a green and a blue, so I think they will go for all 3 of those here. Again, that cost them 3 guilders. That's basically a victory point. And this is, interestingly enough, basically the remaining ink and the letters is a reverse tiebreaker. So the fewer letters you have, the more likely it is that you will win in case of a tie. Nice done. So you're not wasting those resources. And up last is the blue player. And what do they need? Actually, I think they want 1 blue for sure. Do they need more than? Yeah, they will also spend 3 guilders on all of those 3. I think they might make use out of this. Again, the last one gets discarded into the cloth bag. We are moving down to the specialties, and blue has 1, red has 1, and white has 1. Again, the same turn order, red, blue, white and blue. And what does red want to go with? I think they didn't really fancy either of those. Actually, in theory they could go yeah, let's go for this double one, because again, you want to have as many of your cubes up here at least on level 4, because then they will start to give you victory points at the end of the game. And when you are moving beyond that one, for each step you're getting 3 extra coins, which is another victory point in theory, which you would get. Could be a relatively big deal. Okay, that was the red player. For white, it doesn't really matter too much. They definitely want this symbol here, but they have it on both. Maybe that's the one piece that red could have checked out to say, I'm taking, basically hate draft this away from you. But again, as I'm playing this alone, it's tough already as it is, planning this for 3 players. So I guess what's more important, the letter. Let's go for this one here. So a letter and the chisel. And I think that's basically engraving or something like that. So we're moving up here and we are moving up here. Now we are meeting the requirement of this refinement card here, which is pretty amazing. And he's moving relatively nicely up those tracks here, and that could give them a lot of points at the end of the game. And last but not least, it's the blue player. They have to go with that, and there's no reason not taking this, not at all. So that's 1 here and 1 here. So they also made it now to level 2. I think that's certainly helpful. They get a free ink from the bag. And what do we need? I think another blue in this case, actually. Yeah, let's go for another blue. They really have a lot of requirements for blue. So I think this worked out for them too, but that's already this action. Now let's improve our printing house, and this is where the white player is first. Then it's blue, then it's red, because both blue and white have 2 cubes. Red only has 1. He wanted to do something, but wasn't really that picky this round. But what is white going to do? They can change 1 here. I mean, they're going to... I think we are going for this now, because they're relatively certain they're going to complete or fulfill... Oops, yeah. The order here, which would require them to have a blue ink drop, and that's an extra 2 victory points at the end of the round. Not sure if they're going to do with that, because they still need the O later on. So now exchanging this O into a new, for example, isn't necessarily that important for them. So maybe let's not do that. And I'm really playing this very poorly now. I really should buy more letters and plan more ahead. But again, planning and playing this for 3 players is a nightmare, actually. But okay, this was the gear. They cannot use it right away. That's something that you do when you are fulfilling the orders. Up next is blue, and I think they're going for this one here, because then they can also upgrade the lowest one, which is not necessarily a bad thing. This doesn't help them at all because they don't have anything with green ink. So yeah, let's go for that. And yeah, let's do it like this, and I think let's activate it right away. The lowest one is this one, but yeah, bringing them closer to victory point distance. Yeah, and then last but not least, it's the red player, who can now either choose to take this wheel and exchange any one of those. This could be a potential thing. On the other hand, they could also say, I don't know, let's bring this one back here, and this would again score me in an extra point, for example. But they could also simply bring it in here, but they still have a lot of things. So I think he's not feeling like, on the other hand, this is something that gives them something all the time. Maybe that's the better deal for now. Does he mean, but he also needs some more O's, actually. That's now a very interesting piece to decide, actually. Do we want more points right now, or do we want to prep for future rounds? But this is something we could still do, actually. But if I do this, yeah, why not? Let's lift it out. Let's bring it back so we can use it again at the end of this round. I think that's not correct now. I think that's better. That's the one piece. Yeah, I think that's correct. Again, it has to basically fit into the size of this half arc here. Before I forget, let's use this special ability here, which gives you basically 1 point for each round that you already have played. We are already in round 2, which means red is scoring an additional 2 points. That's pretty huge, actually. And then last but not least, we are moving into the Patronage Action. And here blue is finally first, because they planned 3 cubes in there. Then it's white, then it's red. So blue will go first down here. What are we going to do, actually? What do we need? Do we want another specialty, which could be pretty huge? Or do we want money to buy ourselves stuff? Because it's not very likely. On the other hand, there is something later on. This could be points, actually. We only need 1 letter this round. No, I think that's fine. We are going for the specialty upgrade. And again, looking at our orders here, this one here has a requirement of 2 binding and 2 of these engraving. So I think let's go for this. So we have already met this requirement here, and then we could focus here. So the next round could be a 9-point round, for example. Pretty huge. On the other hand, we could decide to do it just now, actually, but then we would need a hell of a lot of extra letters, which could be incredibly expensive. So no, let's not do that. White has basically the next choice, and I think as we do need some extra letters at some point in time, they will simply go for the, or should we go with, no, I think that's okay. Let's go for the extra guilders down there for white. Last but not least, it's the red player. What do they need? They could go for the droplets, because if they do, they could use it well. And they cannot go for extra. No, I think it's perfect choice for them. They will go for the droplets. They will definitely go for at least 1 blue droplet, if there is still one in there. And the other one, does it matter? Does it matter? Yeah, let's go for another red one here. So that's basically the last action of the round. Before we are now moving into the fulfilling order steps, let's maybe consider to activate some of our gears so that we are not missing out on stuff. So again, the red player has taken these two, and I think he's going to activate this gear here because this allows them to basically place one of the blue drops in there to take any two other drop, or not other, it can also be blue, for example, though he can also multiply that if they would like to. In this case, why not let's go for a blue just to have the choice, and maybe another green. I think they might need another green, so we are not losing out on this possibility. This is something that they will again trigger during the fulfill order step. I think blue would also like to leverage this. Again, the fourth letter would cost you 4 coins. Because of the discount, they are only paying 1 coin. They don't necessarily need the A right now, but maybe sooner or later they will need it anyway. And again, we might as well stay here because they're going to fulfill this order here, at least partly. So they need, need another I actually. So they have to buy another letter, and that's their 5th letter. So they have to spend 5 coins, which is expensive, but not the end of the world. They go with another I, and there are really enough of these wooden letters available. There are replacement cardboard tokens in the rare case, they are saying, but we have never seen that happening. Okay, and I think last but not least, I actually do want to consider using this ability here and exchanging the O to an U. So we can rather do this one here instead, because here we are meeting all the requirements. Here we are missing out of those, and that's something that we can still achieve. So I guess let's do that. So let's switch gears. Let's bring the O back. We are taking a U instead for that. Again, that's the special ability of this gear, and placing it here accordingly. And I think now we are going to resolve our fulfill. Let's stay with the white player here. And in this case, yeah, they could go for more letters, but let's wait. I mean, we still have time. I think right now we are still doing okay. So we are fulfilling this order. We have the letters. That's 3 coins. Nice. We can definitely use those. Then we are getting 4 points plus 2 points. We are on level 3. Keep that in mind. This goes back to the cloth bag, and we are getting an extra coin here because we have also fulfilled basically both requirements on that refinement. So overall, that's 6 points because we have basically an order with the blue droplet, which we have also completed. Really have to also satisfy the requirement, not just having this on there. This gives us an additional 2 points. So that's 8 points in total for white. So they're really catching up now. So they're jumping to 12 points in total. And again, I really like the artwork and the style of this game. This is all so authentic here. But I guess that's that for the white player. I don't know. Let's do blue first, or rather next. So I think they are okay here. That's this one. And yeah, I think the others, there is no real chance that he will be able to afford that anyway. So they're getting 5 coins for that, and that's definitely massive. We are getting 6 points. We have met this. We are not meeting this, but we are still getting the reward here because again, we are Fiol. We are awesome. We are amazing. We can do that. And I think no, we are not getting anything here, which means 6 points for blue it is. So tying with the white player because of the reward. Let's do that real quick. They get to take and then another order, which is 2 and 2. Again, they could always spend money. Think let's go for this one here. It's really difficult, but still there is a slight chance we might be able to do that. And as for the refinement, I think let's go for this because this would give them victory points rather than an additional ink droplet. Okay, that was pretty perfect. I will discard all of the components for blue. Then last but not least, we are moving to the red player, and I think here the idea was to go for both of those contracts down here. So they also have to go for an additional letter, which is only 4 coins, right? It's the 4th letter, yeah. So they're spending 5, getting 1 back. They want the extra I, right? So we are placing it here. They are meeting this. They are not making it here. It's achievable, but yeah, let's not worry about that too much. They're definitely going to activate this, which is basically 1-0 they are fulfilling here, so that's an extra 2 points, but let's do that one at a time. They are getting $2 for here. They're getting 4 points for this, no points for here. So they're moving 1, 2, 3, 4 points up, all the way up to 14 points already. And they got the 2 coins here. Down there, they get an extra 2 coins because they also completed this order here. And let's not forget the 2 points here. Right here, 1, 2, and then that's taken care of, and then the 2 coins here, and 2 more points for the greenish one. And I think, yeah, they didn't even do that here, but again, that's 2 more points from that, all the way up to 18 points already. So we are moving those out. We are discarding all of those tokens down here back into the bag, and that's basically the end of the round. So we are cleaning up everything here. We are basically replenishing the main game board, but I think this is where I will stop for today. And again, I will let you decide if you want me to continue with my multiplayer experience, or if you say no, that's fine, I have seen everything. And you really have basically seen nearly everything. The one thing that is missing now, moving into round 3, someone could claim now a patronage card instead of going to this space down here if they meet the requirement. It's difficult doing this as of round 3, but not impossible, that is. And maybe you really want to desperately go for something out here, because that's the thing. But again, once those cards are gone, they are gone, and that's 8 points each. And of course the final scoring, but that's something I already went through to you. Again, I will let you decide. I will leave everything out here for a day or two, and in case you're not that interested, I will pretty much reset everything and will then explore the solo mode. But before I do, a huge shout out to all of my patrons out there. Really do appreciate all your support. If you want to support my show, you can find a link to my Patreon. You can join me here on YouTube directly. Like and subscribe. This also greatly helps. Leave a comment, and yeah, with that being said, hope to see you soon in one of my other videos, and until then, bye bye.